Updating old furniture has been one of my favorite things to do for years, and this dining table makeover might just be my favorite yet. Not only did it save us hundreds of dollars, but it completely changed the feel of our kitchen. But here's the thing, I was terrified going into it. I knew I could bring the table and chairs back to life. I knew I could make them durable, but the part that scared me the most was the stain color. I wanted a table that matched my home perfectly, but oak loves to pull orange and red undertones, and I could not have that in my gray home. Before I show you how I got rid of that orange, let me tell you what we were starting with. For years, we've been eating around this warm wood dining table that we refinished over 10 years ago.
And it just does not work with the space. Everything else in our space has gray undertones and deep wood accents. And then there was this table, warm and orangey, sticking out like a sore thumb. Not to mention how worn out the finish was and how terrible the chairs looked. I've lived with it for years, but it got really bad once we moved into this house. And every time I look at it, I just wish I could swap it out for something that actually matched. So when I found this oak dining table on Marketplace, I knew it had potential. It was solid wood, no veneer as far as I could tell, which is such a rare find now. But I know oak pulls orange, the leaf didn't even match the rest of the table, and it didn't have matching chairs. I ended up buying this set of chairs separately, and while I liked their shape, the fabric was outdated, and they definitely didn't look good in my home. At first glance, it just looked like a mismatched mess, but I knew that I could make it beautiful and that I could save us hundreds, maybe even over $1,000 compared to buying a brand new dining set. Plus, if I bought a brand new dining set, it would not be this good of quality. The very first step was removing that thick, glossy finish from the table. I knew sanding would never cut it here. The finish was just too thick, and I'm not standing here sanding for hours and hours. So instead, I grabbed Clean Strip Premium Stripper. I already knew this stripper works well, but I wanted to use it for this project so I could show you exactly how well it works. I don't love using it because there's a very strong smell with it, and it is not a clean stripper. But it has been years since I used it, so let's see how well it does. I brushed it on with a cheap chip brush, let it sit for about half an hour, and then came back to scrape off the old finish, but it wasn't coming off. I let it sit another 15 minutes and still not much different. So I grabbed my carbide scraper, and that's when the magic happened. The stripper softened up the finish and the scraper sliced through the layers like butter. And if you've ever tried to sand through a finish like this, you know how frustrating it can be. The sandpaper gums up, you burn through the sandpaper, and it takes forever. But with this combo, it actually went fast. I scraped off huge sections, and suddenly this orange oak table was looking more like gorgeous raw wood again. For the carved details and spots I couldn't reach with the scraper, I switched to a stiff wire brush. Some spots needed a second coat, but eventually the finish was gone. I cleaned off the remaining residue with mineral spirits, fine steel wool, and a nylon brush, and the table looked so much better already. The next day when the wood was dry, it was time to sand. I used my electric sander with flat sandpaper and a foam pad to get into the curves. That foam pad saves me so much time compared to hand sanding. I started with 100 grit to remove any remaining finish and residue, and then moved up to 150 grit to sand away the rough spots. On the top, I finished by sanding my hand in the direction of the grain. That's something I always do because orbital sanders can leave swirl marks, and those don't show up until you stain. You wipe on stain and see little circular marks everywhere, and it is just heartbreaking. Hand sanding gets rid of them and prevents the heartbreak. Once it was smooth, I vacuumed the dust and wiped everything clean. Now for the part I had been dreading, the stain. This was the step that had me nervous for months. Oak loves to turn orange or red with stain, and that would completely clash with our home. But a while back, my mom had come up with this idea of mixing green stain into regular wood stain. Color theory says that green cancels orange and red, so we mixed a green water-based stain with dark walnut. I tested it on the underside of the leaf, and while it gave me hope, it didn't look exactly right because that part of the table had been sanded down instead of stripped, and I wasn't really patient as I sanded it down, so the stain didn't go as dark as I wanted after a couple of coats. But the tone of the stain was right. So when it came time to stain the real table, I held my breath. I started by wiping on ebony stain, which is basically black, and immediately after I layered the walnut green mix right over it, working in sections and wiping it off as I went. And when I stepped back and looked at it, I was so relieved. It worked. The orange was gone. The undertone was neutral with that deep, rich look that my cabinets have. And suddenly, this orange oak table looked like a designer piece. I can't even describe the relief I felt. Until the stain dried, and I checked on it. Then I saw that the leaf looked like milk chocolate and the rest looked almost like dark chocolate. Taking a gamble, I tested more ebony stain on just the bottom of the table because if it didn't work out, at least it was on the bottom. Well, to my relief, it worked, so I added another coat of ebony to the leaf.
Before I move on, let me quickly share something that has helped me on projects like this. Have you ever started a furniture makeover and halfway through realized you forgot an important supply or you weren't sure what step to do next? That used to be me all the time and it stressed me out. That's exactly why I created the Furniture Makeover Planner Sheets. They take away all of the stress and make sure you know exactly what to do next and that you have the supplies you need before you even start. They've been a game changer for me and I'll link them below in this video so you can grab them too.
After letting the stain dry for a few days, everything matched and looked so good. So I moved on to protecting the table with polyurethane. This part matters just as much as the stain if you want the finish to not get ruined. I sprayed on several coats of water-based poly in semi-gloss with my beginner-friendly sprayer. Because it was hot out, the first coats dried rough, so I lightly sanded them smooth, and then for the final coat, I switched to satin and applied it by hand with my little trick. A foam sponge wrapped in pantyhose. I don't know why, but that combination always gives me the smoothest, streak-free finish. In total, I did 5 coats. That might sound like a lot, but I want this table to be as durable as possible with my little kids around it all the time. And now the finish looks and feels like glass.
Guys, the top coat is dry and it feels so smooth. It feels store-bought. I am so glad I took the time to sand this smooth and do it by hand because this just feels so good. I personally am very sensitive with how things feel, and I would not have been super happy with the roughness of the spray, even though it's still pretty smooth. Poly dries so fast. Plus, I did it in the heat of the day, so that didn't produce a very smooth sprayed on finish, but this is so good. I did this in the morning when it's still cool outside, and this feels so good. It feels and looks store-bought, and I am so excited. It's so good.
Then it was time for the chairs. These marketplace chairs were in good shape structurally, but the light wood finish and purple fabric did not match my home. So Taylor cleaned them, scuff sanded them with the orbital sander and foam pad, and then primed them with clear shellac. Shellac is one of our go-to primers because it not only helps paint stick, but it also blocks stains from seeping through. We let it dry overnight and then sprayed on black primer that is amazing for durable finishes. And I love that it is black, so if my paint ever chips, I won't see the primer. And just because I'm extra particular about smooth painted surfaces, we sanded them down with a fine grit foam pad. I just wanted to smooth the primer, not sand through it. Then I followed it up with 2 coats of black paint in the color Caviar. This paint doesn't need a top coat and it sprays beautifully. I thinned it slightly and sprayed early in the morning when it was cooler, so the finish came out super smooth. Last but not least, I reupholstered the seats with grayish faux leather that ties in perfectly with the tones in our home.
And now for the reveal. From our old kitchen table and the orange oak table and mismatched chairs to a cohesive high-end dining set that looks like it came straight from a high-end store.
Oh, wow. This looks so good. It matches the cabinets. The tan matches the couch. Oh, this looks so much better. I'm so excited, guys. I have been waiting for like 2 years to fix this up and actually have it match. And this looks so good now. And I saved hundreds of dollars, if not like thousands, because this looks so good. So good.
The color matches our home perfectly, the finish is durable, and the chairs finally look like they belong. And no more peeling fake leather. I can't even tell you how much better it feels walking into our kitchen now. It is such a huge difference compared to the old warm tone table we had before. So now I want to know, would you try something like this, or are you team paint instead of stain? Leave me a comment below because I'd love to hear your plans. And if you're curious if it's still worth it to paint thrifted furniture, you won't want to miss my next video. I'm sharing exactly why I still paint thrifted furniture after all these years and how it has changed my life, and it can yours too. Click here to watch that next one, and I'll see you there.